This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so You Can Vote is a nonpartisan voting rights organization that works to educate, register, and empower all eligible voters. NC You Can Vote began its work in 2014 and over the past 5 years has trained approximately 2,500 volunteers, registered 30,000 voters, and engaged in 400,000 individual educational meetings. You Can Vote's mission is to provide community members with the necessary tools they need to become active voters by using quality conversations and simple materials that offer current and accurate information. We are so pleased to have Caitlin with us. Caitlin, thank you. Caitlin Metziger was born and raised in Hillsborough, North Carolina, and earned a bachelor's degree of sociology from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro. After UNCG, Caitlin moved to New Orleans for 4 years to work for a rapid rehousing and homelessness prevention program. After returning to North Carolina, she worked for 3 years in ACA enrollment, the Affordable Cares Act, and outreach to maximize the number of people enrolled in affordable and quality health coverage. She has worked with You Can Vote since 2017, first as a special projects organizer and now as the deputy director. Caitlin loves to be involved with voter engagement, starting with registration, then hearing what issues are in the forefront for voters, and making meaningful connections on how elections and their consequences influence daily life. So thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you so much. That was a perfect welcome, and thank you all for spending time with us this afternoon. I'm excited to be here, and sorry we can't all gather together as we have in years past, but I'm excited to be here today and spend a little time talking about what's coming up in 2020 and what you need to know to be a voter. I'm going to attempt to screen, oh, you can see my screen, I hope. See if I can present this in presenters mode. All right. Shanae, you'll tell me if that doesn't look right, hopefully. It looks okay from this end. So, oops. All right. So as Shanae mentioned, I am Caitlin Metzger. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Deputy Director of You Can Vote. I am very excited to be here today to talk about making sure you know your rights, that you can make your plan, and vote 2020. So this same slide with my contact and my email is at the end of the presentation as well. So if you need to get in contact with me, I'll share that towards the end. So you mentioned this already, Shanae, but I will just briefly go over what You Can Vote is in case this might be your first time at a You Can Vote event. We are a nonpartisan nonprofit organization that has worked in North Carolina for 7 years. We were created in late 2013. And what we do is aim to increase voting literacy and civic engagement. Our vision is to have a representative democracy that reflects the diversity of our state, includes all voices, and aims to serve all North Carolinians. Our mission to help accomplish this is by educating, registering, and empowering voters every single year. And so this is a huge year, 2020, of course, but we've been doing this work every single year. We do call every year an election year because it is in North Carolina. And so you won't see us going away after this fall. If this is your first event, I hope it's not your last. And if it's not your first event, we welcome you back with us today. Quick agenda, what I'm going to talk about, what elections are coming up, who's eligible, when you can vote, where to vote, and how to make your vote count. I know there's a lot of conversation about vote by mail, so don't worry, I will spend some time on that. But also just want to make sure that we have a good foundation and that everyone has the information that they need to have all the information, not just one method to vote. All right, so what are we talking about in 2020? This is a huge election year. This next graphic, it is on our website, and I'll just spend a quick minute talking about what these issues are. We often hear from voters that they know about the top of the ticket and they know all about it, so they're good. And what we kind of try to pull up next is, what about all the other races, right? This is not just a presidential year, even though that does make it a bigger year in a lot of ways. So we've kind of broken this down on our website, and I'm not going to go through every single one. But if you are a person who feels really interested and invested in healthcare and or education and or civil rights and or climate and or criminal justice, there is something on the ballot this year that impacts those issues. And so we really try hard to work towards building power for voters, and a lot of that is about building connection. So for folks who are very interested in healthcare, there are probably a dozen races on the ballot this year for people who will make big decisions about healthcare, not just on the federal level, but on the statewide level, and especially the local level. I think it's important to mention, of course, we are in the midst of a pandemic right now, and our countywide public health departments have been on the forefront of that. Our county commissioners have been, as always, are on the forefront of funding certain services for each of us. And so it's not just about the top of the ticket. I do just want to take a minute and bring you all the way down ballot, which I'll show you all the names of the offices next. But I would encourage you after today, or if you see something that's interesting here to you, if you go to youcanvote.org/WOB, which is what's on the ballot, there is a lot of interactive kind of click through information there that can help you relate with what you're interested in to what's on the ballot this year. So that's what's at stake. Here are some of the offices, and I just typed this out. I know this doesn't look quite as pretty as that graphic I just showed you. Again, this is on our website in a couple different formats. And I always like to start local. Local races are super important. These are the people that you might run into in the grocery store, right? I always joke that you're not going to run into your senator, your US senator at the grocery store. You might run into your school board representative though, right? You might run into your House representative. So local races do need your attention, and you do need to be making sure that you know all about these races all the way down the ballot. So between local and statewide and federal elections, there are over 20 races that you will see this year on the November 3rd ballot. Yeah. Quickly about registration, I'm thinking that if you are coming to this presentation, and if you're active enough to come to this presentation, you might be already registered to vote, but I want to just double check and make sure. Making sure that you know who's eligible and that you are actually registered to vote. So the registration requirements in North Carolina are that you have to be a US citizen, you have to be at least 18 on or before Election Day to vote, although we do have pre-registration for 16 and 17-year-olds. You have to have lived at the address where you're registering for at least 30 days before Election Day. Again, that's November 3rd. And then not currently serving the terms of a felony sentence, including probation and parole. And I do mention that because it's one of the biggest misconceptions that we find, that people don't know that voters in North Carolina only temporarily lose the right to vote if they are serving a conviction for a felony. And actually, people who have a conviction for a misdemeanor never lose the right to vote. So I think it's important to just remember who's eligible. This is for registration and for voting in North Carolina. Quick note, you do need to update your registration every time you move. We are running into a lot of people who are saying, especially right now, because in the summertime, a lot of people move. People will say, no, I'm good, I'm registered to vote. But this is my plug to do the lookup tool and make sure. If you go to youcanvote.org/lookup, and I'll show you on our website in a minute too, how to look yourself up. I really recommend this every single year. It's to make sure that you're still listed as an active voter, make sure your address hasn't changed. If there's anything different about your address, or maybe your name has changed, if you want to choose a different party affiliation, any of those changes, use the same exact form if you use the paper form or the online tool. And so I do recommend looking up your registration. Even if you swear and tell me you've been registered for 100 years, I would look yourself up just to make sure. The other great thing about that lookup tool, this link will take you to the State Board of Elections lookup tool. It will tell you not only if you're registered and that making sure that you're active status, but it also tells you your Election Day polling location. So it tells you where to go if you're going to vote on November 3rd. It gives you a list of your districts and where you live. One thing to note is that some people did have a change in 2019 because we did get new slightly different congressional maps and slightly different legislative maps. So it's possible when you go to vote this year, you might be in a different district than you thought you were. So again, I can't recommend it enough. I really want you to do that lookup tool, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your colleagues. It's one of the steps to being a successful voter this year is to make sure that your registration's up to date and that you know what to expect when you go to vote. Now, this is just a quick screen grab of what's on our website about the new online registration portal. So earlier this year, our State Board of Elections partnered with our North Carolina DMV to offer partial online voter registration. And I know this looks like a lot of text, and it is. There are several steps to do this. But this is great news for voters, and it's good for you to know that if folks need to make a change to update their registration, or if they need to register for the first time, they can likely do that online. There is an online portal through the DMV, and this link brings you there. This is just a short link to take you there. And we also have these instructions on our website as well. The other great thing I want to make sure that you know about is that You Can Vote has an additional tool for people who are not DMV customers. And so a lot of voters have a North Carolina driver's license or some kind of ID card from the DMV. So that means that they're a DMV customer. If you're not a DMV customer, though, we have an additional way to do that from our website. So again, it's the same link, and it will take you through the steps at youcanvote.org/register. It's really important to focus on registration right now, too, because in the midst of this pandemic, groups like mine haven't been able to do our regular registration events. And so we have missed out on a lot of our regular routine registration events. So there's a lot of people out there who need to make an update to their registration, or people who are just moving into the state and need to get registered that we might run into in a regular year. You know, we're out at farmers markets, we're inside schools, we're at the courthouses. Normally, You Can Vote is all over the community talking to voters. Since that hasn't been the case this year, I did just want to make another plug for registration to make sure that you and everyone that you know knows that you're registered. So take a minute. You don't have to do it right this second. And I can make these slides available to you if you're interested. But if you go to youcanvote.org/register, I really recommend that you just make sure that you're updated and that there is a way to update online in a socially distant world where we can't really be door knocking or out in front of Food Lion with a clipboard. There is a way to get registered right now online. When and where to vote. So here comes some important dates. First, I will mention that there are 3 ways to vote in North Carolina. It is not my position to promote any one over the other, but I do think it's important for you to know each one so that you can make your plan and make your vote matter. So the first option is voting early. The great thing about early voting is that you can go to any location in your county. So in Orange County, I don't know the total, I can't remember the total number, but there's lots of different options for sites. So that means you can go to any of them. Maybe one day you're passing by a certain school or church, and that's what's more convenient for you. Maybe on a different day, you might be coming home from your friend's house and a different location is more convenient. The great thing about early voting is that there's no wrong place. Any registered voter can go to any location in their county during early voting. And then probably maybe the best thing about early voting is that we have same-day registration. So for anybody who didn't do the lookup tool and hasn't updated their voter registration prior to early voting, you can actually go to those early voting sites. You can make a change to your registration or register for the first time and then vote the same day. So North Carolina offers same-day registration, which is a great tool for voters who need to do that during early voting. Those dates are October 15th through 31st, and I have another slide coming up about that. The next option, if you choose to vote on Election Day, that is November 3rd this year, you need to be registered already. We don't have same-day registration at Election Day. And you will have an assigned polling location. So remember, I mentioned on the lookup tool, when you look up your name and click on your name, it says your location of where you should go on election day. Another reason why it's so important to do the lookup tool is sometimes those polling locations change. So if you voted somewhere for the past several years, but this year your county board decided a different location is better, your polling location might have changed for election day. So if you choose to vote on election day, I really, again, recommend the lookup tool and make sure you know where to go. On election day, of course, that's always a Tuesday. It's November 3rd, and polls are open 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. And then the next option is vote by mail. I know a lot of folks want to hear about this year. Some key things to remember about it is that you have to be registered. So again, I'm going to keep plugging voter registration. You've got to be registered before you vote by mail. And it's a two-step process. So you have to request your ballot. So there's a specific form called the absentee ballot request form. You have to fill that out and return it to your county board. Now the rules have changed about this slightly. And so you have a few more ways that you can turn that in. Right now, you can download that form and fill it out. You can either mail it to your Board of Elections, you can fax it to your Board of Elections, you can email it to your Board of Elections, or you can walk down there and give it to them in person. So there's a couple different ways. The other great news, though, is that there's an online portal coming that you can do that online. So our State Board of Elections, again, has created a new tool this year. And starting on September 1st, registered voters can go to that website. It's through the State Board of Elections, and access the request form all digitally. So that's really good for voters who might not have access to a printer or a stamp or a scanner or some of the other ways that sending in a request form might be difficult for some people. The second step is that you have to turn in your ballot, right? So when you vote by mail, you do the request form, and then you receive your ballot in the mail from your county board of elections. In that mailing comes your ballot, your return envelope, and some instructions. And it's really important to read the instructions. It's not always super easy to vote by mail. It might not be intuitive, the way to do that. But some key things to remember are that you have to have it witnessed. There is still one witness that is required in 2020. And so that means you have to have someone who can attest and sign your ballot as a witness that says that you voted that. You also have to sign on a specific line. And one of the big things that happened this past March in the primary is that the witness and the voter sometimes switch places or sign on the opposite line. And that actually invalidates the ballot. So again, it's really important to read those instructions. If you choose to vote by mail, there are some steps that you have to follow really carefully. And I don't want folks to take all those steps and think that they're doing that and then it end up not counting because of a small technicality. So make sure to read through those instructions when they come to you and make sure that you ask your Board of Elections if you have any questions. And there are some dates and deadlines that are important to know. I'm going to show you that in 1 second. Here's the graphic I mentioned. This is always one of my favorites because I don't know, I hope it shows up very big on your screen. It's taking up my whole screen right now. So you can take a screen grab of this or pull out your phone right now and take a picture of this screen. You can vote early from October 15th through 31st. And every time I do a presentation like this, I always ask everyone in the room to share something that they learned with at least 5 friends. I'm going to ask you to do 10 because this is an important time and this is a weird and strange time in 2020. So if you haven't thought about voting early or if you think this might be an option for you, I want you to pull out your phone and take a screen grab of this and then tell your friends. It is a good option for most voters, for a lot of voters in North Carolina. There's 17 days. So first of all, it's a lot more convenient than Election Day, right? Election Day is 1 day. Early voting is 17 days long. We also have you can go to any location. So you have multiple opportunities to find a convenient location for you. And don't forget, maybe the best thing is same-day registration. So if you need to make a change to your registration or register for the first time, Maybe you know someone who just moved to North Carolina to go to school, and that now they're a UNC student from out of state. If they choose to vote in North Carolina, they're going to have to get registered, right? So one way to do that is to go to early voting and use same-day registration. This next one is about Election Day, and that is November 3rd. Again, the polling locations on Election Day are open from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. You do have your assigned polling location where you should go to. And if you're in line at 7:30, stay in line. I think we can all expect a pretty big turnout this year, even with the virus situation. There may be lines still on Election Day. And so it's important to remember that if you're in line by 7:30, even if they don't accept new voters showing up late, if you're in line, stay until you vote. Sometimes people are voting like at 9 p.m., but they've been in line since before 7:30. So that timing is important to know. Again, if you choose to vote on Election Day, stay in line, all right? Quick note, I usually have been getting a lot of questions about voter ID. I do just want to make sure that you know that ID is on hold for now. The laws have changed about this a couple times in the past few years, so it's okay if you can't quite keep up. It's been going back and forth. But it's important that you know that you will not be asked for a photo ID this year in 2020, at least. There are some court cases in litigation, but at this point, it's not going to be able to be required in 2020. The only way that it might come into play is that for folks who do use that same-day registration that I've been talking about at early voting, they can be asked for a proof of residency document if they haven't been able to be verified from the Board of Elections. So that can be an ID if it has your current address, but it doesn't have to be an ID. It could be something like a bill, a check, a bank statement. It's really about verifying your address. And so if you are asked to show some kind of proof of your residency in order to register, just make sure that you have something that has your full name and your voter registration address on it, okay? It doesn't have to be an ID though. Couple things I want to show you. I'm going to see if I can get out of this to show my website, but this is a preview. And then I'll try to deal with this technology. You Can Vote, one of the things we really pride ourselves on are having updated and easy to understand materials and educational tools. So we have just updated our new frequently asked questions. As you might imagine, there's been some changes and some anxiety about voting this year. So we have just updated this FAQ document. I will show you where to find it on our website. But oftentimes, if you have a question, someone else has already asked us that. So what we did is gather the most commonly things that we're being asked about every day, put them into a document. It's easy to share. You can put it on social media. You can put it on an email. You can print it out and mail it to somebody if you want to send some mail to somebody. I do just want to make sure that you know where that is, though. So let me see if I can get out of this. Oh. I think you can still see my screen. All right.
We can see it.
Okay, good. I can't see the chat box either, so I don't know. So you just got to tell me if you can't see something. All right, so I'm at youcanvote.org. This is just our homepage. And I'm going to hover over resources and click on training. And we have a lot of information here. We've just updated this whole section. So if you are interested in any of these, we want you to use them. They're there for you. But the one that I just mentioned is the FAQ. I'm going to click on that and just show you. I know it's a lot of text. It is text heavy, but people have some questions, right? And it might be confusing because a lot of things have changed this year. More people are going to vote by mail this year probably than ever before. And so again, it's not a bad way, but you got to know the rules about it because it's not maybe as simple as you think it is. So we've laid it all out here. There's additional links in some of these questions for more detail. We've kind of sourced that. I'm going to keep scrolling down. There's some questions. There's all kinds of questions on here. Again, if you have a question, it's likely that someone else has already asked us. So this will be your homework tonight to look over these FAQs and make sure that you know all the things that you need to know. It's not too soon to be thinking about it. I know November 3rd might seem like a long way away, but actually, if you're voting by mail, the ballots begin getting sent out in September. So that is just a couple weeks away. It's not too soon to be thinking about making your plan. So I want to just make sure you know where that is. All right. I think I have one more thing. Our social media toolkit, I do just want to give this a shout out. I don't know if folks on this call are super active on social media, but a lot of voters are, right? So a whole lot of people get information from social media. So we have created a social media toolkit that has some sample posts and some sample blurbs. And so if any of these topics come up on social media, or if you just want to share and say, hey, I just learned something new, you can use this toolkit. So there's information about taking our pledge to vote, which I'll talk about in just a minute. If you're interested in that registration tool, as I mentioned, that's all online. So you can share that and tell people they can register to vote online, one of two ways. You Can Vote has just launched a Voting Rights Champion program. So we have more materials than we've ever had before. If you're interested in being a partner to help us get out materials into the hands of voters, there's sample posts about that, as well as the website is linked there. And then we also are continuing to do online voter empowerment trainings. So similar to what I'm doing here with you today, and just going through and making sure folks have the information that they need. We do a twice a week online training where we welcome all voters to come in and learn the basics. So again, it's the same as this. It's a nonpartisan organization. It's a nonpartisan presentation. We don't go into who to vote for, but we just go into what do you need to know to register and to vote successfully this year. So we welcome you to come to those. Again, that link is on our website. Here's the pledge to vote that I mentioned, and I'll just very briefly tell you what that means. If you go to youcanvote.org/pledge, it asks you for your first name, your last name, your phone number, and your email. And that is one of the ways that we're helping keep up with voters this year. Again, like I mentioned, we're not really doing events like we normally would. And so if you feel like you might have additional questions, or if you know somebody, everyone has a friend that needs a little help voting, right? If you know someone who might need a reminder, I would urge you to use this pledge, because if you enter your information, what that does is let us know that we need to give you a call and a text when it's time to vote. So You Can Vote will be doing calls this year to people who take our pledge. We will personally be calling every single person. We'll make sure you're registered. We'll make sure you know your sample ballot, what that looks like. We'll make sure to walk you through the 3 ways to vote and help you make your plan. If anything changes about polling locations, if anything changes because of COVID, we'll be able to tell you that. So those calls won't happen until probably October. So you have a little bit of time. You have the rest of August and all of September. Find your friends, find your family members who might need that extra push. We'd love for you to share this out. Again, it's youcanvote.org/pledge. And I can share these slides again, so you don't have to remember everything I'm telling you. This is our last slide, and I just want to, this is our one example of what we have for our yard signs, which again, as I mentioned, we have more material than we've ever had before. And this is one of those things. And so we are putting these up in the community. Hopefully you might start seeing them soon, where we're putting these up in front of restaurants. We're putting them up in front of courthouses. We're putting them in front of small businesses like barbershops. We're really trying to blanket the communities with voting information to make sure that people know how to find out what they need. So this is our new graphic. I just want to make sure to show that to you. Ideas or suggestions. Actually, I was lying. I have one more. I told you I added a slide at the end. This is my direct email. We do have a generalized email. But if you would like to get in contact with me, or if you have an idea or a suggestion or a local business who might want to partner with us, if you have another civic group or a church group, or if you know someone who would like a presentation like this, please let us know. This is basically our plan for the rest of the year, is to meet virtually with people, make sure you have the information that you need, and make sure that we can answer the questions that you need to know. It's looking very different than anybody could have imagined. So we want to just be accessible to voters, and make sure that we have, that you have access to us so we can answer any questions that you have. So those are the slides that I have to share. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see you again, and we'll take questions. Let's see if I can do that. Oh, I did it. Okay. All right. I hope I'm doing okay on time, but you'll just let me know. Okay.
No, you're doing perfect. Thank you. So, Kimberly, we're going to turn it over to you in just 1 second. So I know you have some questions that are coming to you. Also, we will have the option of, I will turn the cameras on. If you have a question that you would personally like to ask, if you'll raise your hand, and I will unmute your microphone, and you can ask the question to Caitlin. We also are very lucky to have Rachel Raper, the director for the Orange County Board of Elections, here with us, and she will be answering questions as well. So Rachel, I will be unmuting you, and we'll go ahead and we'll get started. So Kimberly, I'll turn it over to you.
If I can, oh, okay.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. So our questions begin with first one, and Caitlin, you can probably answer this one. Please tell us how we can view the recording and pass it around to friends. So wanting to know how they can get this recording.
This recording would have to be through Shanae, actually, but I'm sure we'll share it out. I think you guys are going to put it on your social media, maybe. For folks who want to come to an additional training, though, the ones that I mentioned are empowerment trainings. Those, we often record those, and we can share those links out too. So we got lots of recordings to share.
Wonderful. Our second question.
So Kimberly, to answer your question, yes, the link for the recording will be posted on the Department on Aging website. And if anyone would like direct access to the link, if they will send you their email address in the chat box, we'll make sure that we get it to them that way as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Our second question is, if an absentee ballot is rejected on a technicality, will the voter have a chance to correct it?
Yes. Great news. Yeah, Rachel, you might want to take this one, but great news. We just, there's additional information coming about the cure process. So if you want to take that one.
Yes. Hello, Caitlin. How are you? It's good to see you. But yes, I did want to jump in. We've always allowed voters to cure any sort of issues they have with their ballot, but now there's going to be official guidance coming from the State Board of Elections to ensure that this is a uniform process across the state and not up to a county to go above and beyond. So we're very happy about that. So yes, if there's an issue with your absentee ballot, we'll certainly reach out to you and make sure you have the chance to correct that issue.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. And let's see, what safety features will be taking place at the Senior Center for early voting?
Great question. I'm glad you asked. Yeah, you should see Rachel with her. I saw Rachel on social media with her outfit, but yeah, all the county boards, all the county boards are taking safety very seriously, and so I feel good telling people to go vote early. You know, there will be social distancing, there will be hand sanitizer. Voters should be wearing masks. All poll workers will be wearing masks. I know some counties are even doing face shields and gloves. There's single-use pens. Again, I'll just push early voting. There, yeah, you can see the face mask. You know, again, the great thing about early voting is that it's not usually crowded during that first week, and so it's a great time to go and be socially distant. You have a brief interaction, of course, to get your actual ballot, but after that, there's very little hand-to-hand contact. And if you go to a site and it's very packed that day, there's still another day, right? It's a full 17-day period. And so early voting locations and election day locations will have sanitation in place to keep you safe.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So what recommendations do you have for people who are by absentee ballot from overseas where mail is already extremely slow?
That's a great question. And Rachel, I don't know if you want to jump in for that one too, because I think there's additional ways to return ballots if you're overseas. So
Yes, an
Voting.
overseas voter is able to actually have their ballot emailed and return their ballot by email. So if a voter's concerned about the mail who's overseas or a member of the military outside their county of residence, they do have those additional options to use the ballot return services by email and getting their ballot by email.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
yeah.
And what recommendations, let's see, if you get a mail-in ballot but then decide you'd rather vote in person, can you vote in person and ignore your mail ballot, or are you locked into mailing your ballot?
Yep. Yes, you can still go vote in person. Yeah, I was just nodding because we've gotten that question every single day. I know a lot of folks are kind of weighing the options. And again, that's why it's good to talk about all three ways, because you do have a choice to make. If you request a ballot and don't want to use it, that's okay. You can still go vote in person. And then another option is that if you want to vote the ballot and complete it at home and then turn it in person, you can actually bring it to an early voting site and hand it in to the poll worker there. So there are a couple different ways. That FAQ document that I showed to you, that actually goes into some of those options, because a lot of people are kind of thinking through the mechanics of that. So it's a good question.
Awesome. And when do the sample ballots come out for Orange County?
Any minute, I hope. I don't know, Rachel, you tell.
Yes. As soon as they're made available, we begin mailing out ballots on September 4th, which is 60 days before the election. Oftentimes, sample ballots are very close to when we receive live ballots, so definitely before September 4th.
Okay, great. And what is the waiting period to vote for felons?
For felons, for people who have been convicted of a felony, once they're done, if that includes probation and parole, but once they're done, there is no waiting period. Once you're eligible, then you're eligible. And there's no special paperwork and there's no special sign off that you have to get. If you are done with your sentence, including probation and parole, you're eligible to vote.
And I did just want to add that here in Orange County, we get a list from the Department of Corrections of people who have completed their felony sentence, and we compare that with our voter registration records. And if they were removed from our records due to a felony, we send them a letter letting them know that we've received word that they have finished all aspects of their felony conviction, and we send a voter registration form. So again, we try to go above and beyond with reaching out to voters.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And how will you know your vote has been received and counted?
I think if you mean absentee voting, I'm guessing. There's a tracking mechanism. So each voter will be able to track the status of their ballot. You'll be able to see when it's received from the Board of Elections, if it's accepted or denied, and then that cure process that Rachel talked about. I don't know if you get specific, the voter gets specific instructions, I think you said, right? So you'll be able to see that whole process. I do want to add, though, it's a good question, because historically people could see when the request went through, and there was a rule change to that this year. So for folks who have already sent in their absentee ballot request and they're like, I haven't heard anything, no one said anything, that's okay, right? No news is good news. So if you have sent in your request form, you won't hear anything until you get your ballot in September. Then you'll know that it went through, right? Because you got your ballot. Then when you send your ballot back, which I would suggest, send it right back in September if you can, or turn it in October. Then there's a tracking mechanism where you'll see that on your lookup tool site.
Okay, great. And how many early voting how many early voting locations does Orange County have, and where are they all located this year?
So we have 6 voting locations.
Good.
I have a nice slide, if I'm able to share it, I'm gonna test technology right now, which is always stressful. But we just got our, so let me know. Let me just, I want to full screen it so that everybody can see the hard work of our graphic designer here in Orange County. I'm seeing a black screen, which is never good.
Yeah, it's not showing up for here. But now
There we go.
oh, there it is.
Okay, so you can see the whole thing?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so here's our early voting schedule. As I mentioned, we have 6 early voting locations. I do want to really pull your attention to one major change, and that's one of the early voting locations in Hillsborough used to be at our office. And we have now moved that to Orange Works at Hillsborough Commons because it's a very, very large space. Our office was pretty small, and we are now going to be turning our office into a vote by mail intake center. So again, we won't offer early voting at our office. It'll be offered at Orange Work at Hillsborough Commons here in Hillsborough. We'll continue voting at Carrboro Town Hall in Carrboro, Chapel of the Cross in Chapel Hill, which is right beside the Moorhead Planetarium on East Franklin Street. Then we have Eflin Ruritan Club. We have our wonderful Seymour Senior Center. And then we debuted a new site in March, the March 3rd presidential primary, and that was at University Mall. So, and we're lucky to be able to use that again. And as you see, on all weekdays, we're open from 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. On Saturdays, we're open 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And on Sundays, we're open 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. And we begin voting on October 15th, and then we run all the way through October 31st.
Awesome.
Cookie season. Yeah, you can wear your costume. Halloween.
Awesome. And are there Dropbox locations for people to drop absentee ballots?
We do not offer drop boxes. Part of the statute is that there are 3 ways to return a ballot. A voter can mail that ballot in, a voter can return the ballot to our office, and a voter can return the ballot to an open early voting site. When the voter returns a ballot in person or their near relative in person, that voter or their near relative will have to fill out an absentee ballot return log.
Got it. Awesome. Well, that's all the questions that I have. I don't see anyone. Do we have an open call for any other questions from any of the other viewers here today? Let's see. Oh, we might have one that popped up here. If a voter is homeless or transient, may they request the ballot to be sent to an address, and at any address willing to hold mail for them, or does it need to be a near relative?
So the mailing address, the mailing address can be anywhere that they can receive mail. It would be important to make sure that you're registered to vote first. So there are some residency stipulations there, but if a voter is registered, they can request a ballot to have it mailed anywhere. Yeah.
Thank you. That looks like, unless I'm gonna give a few more moments for any other viewers to ask any questions in the chat box. Okay. I don't see any other questions as of yet, but I'm gonna give a few more moments to see if there's any others. And this is really great information. We've had some very positive comments from the viewers. Thanking you both so much for giving such guidance and information on this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for being here and for listening. And again, as I mentioned, you have to tell your friends now. That's the requirement. So if you learn something, you have to tell some people because there's a lot to think about and a lot of decisions to make. So hopefully you learned something or at least got reminded of something. And then you could take that and tell your friends, your colleagues, your family members to share out to our community. So really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Caitlin, and I'll let Shanae take it from here. We are done with our question portion of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Kimberly, for navigating those questions and fielding those. We appreciate it. I just want to remind everyone, if you are interested in receiving the link for this recording or the slides that Caitlin mentioned, if you will send your email address to Kimberly Knight, and we'll make sure that you get both of those. I would like to take this opportunity to once again thank Caitlin and You Can Vote, and also Rachel for joining us and answering all of the questions that you all have had. Thank you so much. I think this was extremely valuable information. I hope this makes the voting process a little easier, a little more, a little less convoluted to try and follow, because of course, the goal is we want to make sure that everyone has the tools they need to go out and cast their vote in our 2020 election. If there are no other questions, then we will close out the presentation. I thank you all for joining us, and I hope this was valuable information for you.
Thanks y'all so much. Have a good one.